Welcome back, and joining me for a look at the day's market moving news is Faheema Adia from Momentum Securities. Thank you so much for your time, Faheema. Just when I thought that the markets were finally over the narrative of sell in May and go away, the markets experienced some pressure today, and I'm wondering if it was just a blip in a month of optimism and a lot of buying action.
Hi, Zanati. Thanks for having me. Yes, it's been a very busy week on the markets this week. So we saw some key data coming out from the US, which I think has been having an impact on the markets this week on our JSE. So we firstly saw the PPI number that came in hotter than expected. Then we saw that CPI number that came in weaker than expected. And then the market got excited, and that seemed to indicate that the Fed will probably cut rates again this year around September. So I think that's kind of what drove the rally the past few days. But now, unfortunately, we've had further feedback from some Fed officials yesterday saying that, they just took a bit more of a hawkish approach, saying that it's probably best to leave rates higher for longer. And once again, we've now seen the JSE take a bit of a dip on the back of those comments, I think.
And now markets may be thinking maybe we might have gotten a little ahead of ourselves there. All right, well, talking about the JSE, let's actually take a look at some of the company news that came out. Richmont leading the pack there in terms of the gains that we are seeing, up about 6% at some point. So they obviously had their yearly numbers, but also announcing a new CEO that is coming through there. Talk to me about, just the highlights there, but obviously also the market's reaction to those numbers.
Yeah, it was quite a strong set of results, I think, given the difficult macro backdrop. The market definitely liked the results. The share price was up more than 5% on the back of that. So they basically announced that the net income came in quite strong and beat earnings expectations, and they remain highly cash generative, increased dividends by about 10%. If we look at the sales performance, that's mostly been driven by the jewelry masons and retail, which is representing about 69% of group sales. Looking at Yux Net-a-Porter, that deal to find a majority buyer did fall through at the end of last year, but they did say that they're looking for a new one, and they will likely announce that later on in the year. So overall, I think it was a pretty solid update, and the market's responding quite well to it.
Yeah, and usually with this counter, obviously it's also vulnerable to the Chinese economy, and we've been getting a few developments coming out of China. Do you think that maybe investors are also a little bit more optimistic about China's growth prospects at this point?
Yes. So I think that's been a major headwind for Richmont because China is a big market, and unfortunately the recovery there wasn't as quick as we had anticipated. So now that we are seeing further government measures to help, stimulate that property sector in China, I do think it will be a positive if that helps to kind of enable that entire economy to show further signs of real recovery. And if that does happen, it'll obviously be quite beneficial for the likes of Richmont. So yeah, that could be playing into that too.
All right. Well, let's get into another heavyweight of the JSE, or two rather, Naspers and Prosus. So a CEO for both of them, Fabrizio Bloisi, has been announced as the CEO there after, of course, longtime CEO Bob van Dijk stepped down. I don't know if this response that we got on the share price there, as you saw, a little bit of pressure, if it has anything to do with those news, or maybe just some other news out in the markets.
Maybe it was a bit unexpected.
Yeah.
I think, given that he's maybe from Latin America, it's quite new. He was previously the CEO of Prosus's Latin American food delivery business, iFood, also the founder of Mobile. So he has quite a long history in being an entrepreneur and helping to build and grow businesses and brands. Also seems to have quite a strong educational background. I saw he's got an MBA. He's also studied at Harvard and at Stanford, but maybe he's just a bit of an unknown to the market at the moment, and they just kind of need to familiarize themselves with him a bit more.
Yeah, of course. And I do understand also that the interim CEO, Irvin too, was also the CIO. So maybe some market participants thought that he would be permanent CEO. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how investors continue to digest that news. Let's go on to some other company news that came out. Altron, they're releasing a further trading update for their full year. So, of course, there's an impact of continuing and discontinued operations. But on a continuing basis, they expect their HIPs to increase as much as 38%. Not a lot of color there. Any color that you can add for us there, Faheema?
Yes, I think this share has been doing pretty well over the past year. If we look at the performance, it's been up about 50%. And it looks like that turnaround efforts there are probably what's yielding the results for the business. Netstar is probably the most valuable business there in that group. And that strategy to enter the enterprise and consumer markets, I think, will be positive. And shareholders are basically just seeing the value there.
All right. Well, talking about value, where else are you seeing value? Your stock pick for today?
Yes, so my stock pick for today is Tencent. So if we looked at that recent 1Q results for Tencent, it was quite positive. And I think it's just generally looking quite undervalued at present. So we've seen pretty strong growth come from the high margin businesses such as advertisements and video accounts. And it was positive to see that this helped offset some of the weakness that came from the gaming sector. But I think, once we start to see further recovery in China and also in the gaming segment, that will definitely unlock more value for the company. And if we look at the valuation for now, it's looking quite attractive at a forward PE of just 17 times and a PEG ratio of 0.9 times, which shows that there's quite a bit of growth expected in there. So that's my stock pick.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your insights on what has been moving investors' money today and this week. Faheema, appreciate it. That was Faheema Adia from Momentum Securities.